Thanks for joining me on the channel again. In today's video, we are going to make a dual PMD heatsink mount for the Hummer H1. Gigantic heatsink, a little bit dirty there. Huge heatsink. New Flight Systems Dorman XD PMD. Got another one in the house. And what I'm gonna attempt to do is not only mount two of these on here, there's tons of room, obviously. One here, but we're also going to attempt to make this into a battery tie-down bracket at some point. So first thing I want to do is figure out where these PMDs are going to go. Obviously they won't fit that way, it's not enough width, so they've got to go this way or this way. So we'll point both of them the same direction. I'm going to space them out just a little bit, maybe 2 fingers worth, so they're not all crowded next to each other, creating heat. I'm going to have to drill and then tap the holes for these screws. These are the ones that came with the kit. Don't know what thread size they are, so I've got my little handy dandy gizmo here. Let's see, it's probably not metric, I would assume. I think it's a 6-32. Yep, that's the one. So I've got to drill the proper size hole for that and then tap it as well. And we're going to aluminum, so it shouldn't be terribly hard to tap. In order to mark the holes, I'm going to use this heat transfer pad that came with it. That way I know where the holes need to be located, right? And I'm going to mark the position of this one and the other one first. What I'm going to do is measure end to end and then measure this guy from side to side and try to figure out where we're going to put these. We're right shy of 16 inches to the end of this, I think 15 3/4, give or take. And these are, let me show you here. They're about 3 3/8. So call it 3.5. So what I'm gonna do is come in 4.5 inches from the end. Change of plans, not 4.5, 4 inches in from the outside. 4.5, put it to where there was maybe 1/8 of an inch in between the two in the middle. So I space it out more, give it some more space. So that's gonna fit there. And just for kicks, we can mark a line here so you can see where they line up. And you'll see there'll be that much space in between them. So that's perfect, that's good. I'm happy with that. So now what I'm gonna do is line this guy up here. Just eyeball it, get it in the middle. It's not, doesn't have to be perfect. Your holes just have to be in the right spot so that it'll mount. I'm gonna get it as close as I possibly can. There we go, looks pretty straight. Now remember, we're tapping for a 6-32 thread pitch. For that 6-32 tap, you're gonna need a 7/64 drill bit. So we're gonna use a 7/64 drill bit, that one right there. Got my holes marked. I'm gonna take my drill bit, put a little, I don't have a punch with me here at home, but I'm gonna basically push the drill bit into the center of each of those, make a little indentation, that way the drill doesn't walk all around, and then drill each of those holes out. Got those drilled out. Let's confirm that I didn't screw it up. Let's see, let's get it perfectly centered on there. Yep, looks pretty good. I'm gonna mark these 4, drill those 4 as well, and then we'll start tapping the holes. The other thing, the screws don't stick out much past the end of this. Maybe 3/8 of an inch. So you don't have to go all the way through to the bottom, just enough. So if you want, grab a little Sharpie, mark your drill bit with the depth that you want to go, or maybe put a little piece of masking tape on there at the depth you want to go, and use that as the gauge so that you're not going all the way through if you don't have to. Got all 8 of my holes drilled. Next, I'm gonna tap those holes. And see, by not going all the way through, just enough for the screws, maybe a little bit more, I still got all my fins. And I don't have any weird holes here. Kind of like that. Didn't think about that as far as doing it on purpose, but I like the way that ended up. So our 2 PMDs are going to get mounted here and here with the connectors facing outwards. And then I think, as long as there's enough hood clearance, what I'm going to do is have a thick aluminum strap mounted to the bottom of this and shaped as the battery tie-down bracket, and that'll bolt to the vehicle, to the bottom of the battery tray where the battery hold-down bracket should go, and then this will be mounted to the top of it. I think that's how I'm gonna do it. Got my tap set here, just the cheap Amazon tap set. If you don't have a mechanic shop and you just need it every once in a while, these work fine. So we're gonna locate the correct size tap. Let's see, which one is it? It's this guy right here. Make sure you check the reading. It's a 632 tap. So that's the one. And you're gonna need some type of a lubricant to put on the tap. You don't want to tap dry because you run the risk of this thing freezing up in there and then breaking off in your hole. I'm gonna use some sewing machine oil because that's what I have in the toolbox. Yes, I sew upholstery for boats and stuff like that for myself, not for other people. But if you have some engine oil, that'll work. Any kind of lubricant, really. It doesn't have to be specific tap oil. I'm gonna get this thing assembled. So you wanna grab this attachment, it's right there, and unscrew this side to give it a little bit of room. Put the end of your tap in there, and then slowly tighten it up, make sure it's nice and firm, then you're ready to use it. Now at this point, what I'm gonna do is put a little bit of lubricant on there. All right. I'm gonna try to do this one-handed so I can show you on the video. You wanna get it started. Don't put any pressure on it at this point. Just hold it as vertical as you can and turn it slowly. If you get to a point where it starts to feel like it's stuck, just go counterclockwise and back it out. This is going in pretty smoothly. And you can see if I can get you a visual. You see the cutting that's happening there? Some of the material is being cut. You can see it coming out of the holes, like right there. So it's actually cutting the threads. And the threads end up in each of these, or the cut material ends up in these little flutes right here. So at some point you're gonna have to back the thread, the tap out, clean out those little flutes, and then go at it again. Yeah, right about there. I'm gonna back it out. Got the flutes all cleaned up, and we'll go back at it. Make sure you take it easy and get it started back in the same threads that you got cut the first time around. Yep, there it goes. Spinning nice and smooth. There we go. Now we're gonna go slowly. And whenever it starts binding up, I'm just gonna turn it back a little bit. loosen it up, and then keep going. Especially with these small diameter taps, you don't want to put too much force on it because you will break the tap. So take it easy, take your time. I'm backing it out one more time. Clean out the flutes again. See all that stuff in there? So I'm gonna get that cleaned up and then go in there one more time. I probably want to get up to about right here. That'll give me enough depth for the screw to go in without bottoming out. Blow out the threads. I just blew it out with my mouth. If you have some compressed air nearby, do that. You get your screw and see how well it goes in and how far, and see if your threads are deep enough. So I'm in that far, and the PMD sits like so. And you see I need to go a little bit deeper. Probably need to go another, that 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch, something like that. So we'll pull this guy out and continue going in. All right. I think that's good. Let's back this guy out. Grab your screw again, and yep, there's a little bit of gunk on the threads. Let's give it another shot. Oh yeah, that's plenty. So, you can see, it is plenty far down enough. I'll still go in a little bit more. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other 7 holes. Now I've got all 8 of these holes tapped, and I'm gonna go back one more time, run the tap through each one of them just to clean out the threads in case there's any gunk left in there. Now we've chased all the threads. Again, got them all cleaned out. Grab yourself a little rag, clean everything off. And at this point, before I do any sort of permanent mounting, I'm going to test fit the PMD on both sets of holes and make sure everything lines up correctly. All right. Grab all 4 screws. Right there. Oh, did I use the wrong screw? Is there 2 shorter ones? Yeah, I think so. Let's try this again. Yep, these 2 long ones go on the side with the humps there. There we go. Okay. All right. All right. All 4 line up. At this point, we're ready to get it mounted. This is the thermal transfer pad that comes with these. They work okay. What I'm going to use instead is some thermal transfer paste, NT-H1. It's a really good one. It is waterproof, not electrically conductive, and will not corrode, and doesn't dry out over time like some of the other thermal pastes do. So I'm gonna grab this syringe and get it applied on the back of this guy. You don't want to apply it on these, you just want to apply it on this metal surface on the outside. This is how it comes. You get a little cap we're going to unscrew, and then you don't want to put too much anywhere. You want just a super thin layer all around on the metal surface. Got it all applied and smoothed out best I can, and the rest of it will be smooth and kind of pushed out as we torque it down. So I'm going to get this guy mounted, and we'll get it back on the vehicle. I don't have the second PMD yet. It's coming from a different warehouse, so I think it'll be here in a few days. Once that one comes, I'll get it mounted as well. Picked up this long piece of aluminum strap, grabbed it from Lowe's. It was too little metal to go to the metal shop. And if you want the measurements, it is 1/8 inch thick by 1 inch wide, 8 foot long. I don't need the entire 8 feet, obviously. If I had a much larger vise here at the house, I would go thicker than 1/8, and that way get a little bit more strength out of it. But even 1/8, this is plenty thick to use as a battery tie down for my purposes. It's not really anything structural. It's just to keep the batteries in place and keep the heatsink in place for the PMDs. So I measured across from end to end, from the end of one battery to the end of the other battery. I've got 22 inches wide there. From the top of the battery to the mounting surface where the bolts go, it's right at about 4 1/4 inches, maybe 4 3/8. I'm gonna go a little bit shorter than that to where I can just use the bolt that attaches it to make up the gap there. So what that means is we need to leave enough room here to be able to drill a bolt hole and mount it there, and then from here to here I'm gonna do about 4 inches, give or take, then 22 inches, and then on the other end 4 inches, and then a little tab. There's the first bend at the end. I ended up just using the bricks. I laid it down, held it down with my hand, and just gently smacked the end, and as this was starting to curve, smack this down, smack the end, back and forth until I got a nice 90-degree bend. Now I'm gonna measure 4 inches and do the next bend. Second bend is done. Now I'm gonna measure 22 inches, do the next bend. There we go, that's the finished product. You've got angle bent on each side, hole drilled. That bolt that goes in, at least on my truck, I think it's the same on most of the Hummers, it's a 5/16-18 thread. So I went ahead and chased the threads. You can see there's a little bit of cutting fluid from the thread tap. So I chased those threads, made sure they're nice and clean, and now we're gonna figure out how to mount that new heatsink onto that bracket and get it in place. So now the dilemma, how do I mount this together so it's nice and firm, doesn't flop around or anything? Ideally, I would want to be at the shop and have access to a little welder and put a couple tacks on the aluminum and call it good that way. But I'm not, and I don't have a welder here. So could do one of two things. Could place this here, drill some holes here, here, and maybe one in the middle, go all the way through, except don't penetrate this last one, and then put a short bolt through with a nut on this side, and that would be great. Nice permanent fix. But I don't have the hardware with me right now, and I just kind of want to get this done to show you guys that you can make something like this pretty cheap and simple and have a giant heatsink for your PMDs. So what I'm gonna do, don't laugh, I'm gonna take this guy and shove it into that very last fin right there, all the way across, and then, and I already did it once, and it's super tight, super firm. But just to keep it from going anywhere, in case there's vibration, I'm gonna use some 100-pound zip ties, 3 of them, 1 in the middle, 2 on either end, and that will hold it from trying to back out. And then we're gonna have the battery tie down bolted down to the 2 spots and that will all together be really, really nice and firm. If I was to keep this, what I would do is get it put against there, put 3 bolt holes, bolts, and then lock nuts on the bottom, or I would just tack weld and maybe a few spots to keep it in place. But for now, I'm gonna do this, and I don't know if you saw in the last video, I already ordered the ModMafia Dual PMD mount just because it looks pretty slick. I don't think it'll perform any differently than this, but it looks really nice. It was $650 with shipping, but it is what it is. It's a nice piece, CNC machined, and it's from a reputable vendor in the H1 community, and I have no problem supporting the vendors that are putting time and effort into creating parts for these old beasts. But if you do want to make your own, this is a very inexpensive way. I'll put all the links down in the description to the parts I use, which is just this guy and this guy, essentially. This I got from Lowe's. Showed you the SKU and the actual measurements earlier. Just go to the metal by the piece section in Lowe's. It's usually by the hardware aisle, and grab a piece of that strap. You should be good to go. And this one is from Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description for that as well. And the link to get yourself a cheap tap set, which is probably the cheapest one out there on Amazon, I think, is the one I use. And I've had it for years. It still works fine, because I don't use it all day, every day. It's just for the occasional use here and there. So I'll put the links to all that in the description. Now let me get this connected to this, and you'll see how it all looks once it's together. All right, I got it partially in there. I'm gonna use my brass hammer. Just go back and forth. Sorry about that. Had to put down the video. I needed to tap a little bit harder, so I folded up a piece of cardboard to put under the brass hammer. That way I didn't leave a bunch of dents in there. I did a couple right here before I got it knocked all the way in. And that is what that looks like now that it's all in there. It's really tight. I can't really push it out with one hand. I would need to hold it down really firmly and pull on it really aggressively to get it out. So now that that's in, I'm gonna put a few strategically located zip ties here, and we'll get it on the car. Got those on. Grab your flush cuts. Cut them nice and flush. Don't just use wire cutters, because you'll hate yourself once you cut yourself rubbing your hand against one of these if you don't use flush cuts. There we go. Left room for the second PMD. Let's get this old junk thing out of there. Oh, let's get that battery cap on. I had to make one more little modification. This little tab right here, I had to cut a little bit off the edge because it was rubbing up against this guy. Now, once it is bolted down right there, it won't make contact with those anymore. So I cut a little bit more off of it and rounded out the edge. So that should be good there. Let me get this thing bolted in place. Something's really bugging me here. These two battery straps, I know they're there so you can pick up the battery. I really don't care. They look super ugly. I'm gonna cut them off. All right, there it is. That is what it looks like. All the fins are on this side. You've got easy access to the PMD on this side. And you can see yanking on it, and it is really firm and tight in there. You got it bolted down on this side, and you got it bolted down on this side. I left a little bit of extra space because these batteries don't go all the way to the edge of the battery box. I don't know if other batteries might in the future or not, I don't know. But it fits really well. You've got a little bit of a curve right here because that thing is going into the first fin. So this is touching before that strap does. And for some reason, this battery sits a little higher than this one. I don't know why. Maybe there's gunk or leads or something underneath one of these batteries. Whenever I get those pulled out to replace them, I will make sure that that battery box gets cleaned out nice and well. All right, cleaned up the wires that were all looped up here. Got them tucked under there nicely. bringing this loom over so it doesn't go under, run a risk of catching on that pulley. I got the resistor, number 5 resistor, swapped over, and we're gonna get this guy plugged in. Okay, oh, did that go in all the way? Yep, no obstruction. Looks good there. All right, let's try that again. Oh, there we go, perfect. Okay, that is on. We should be good as far as hood clearance and everything. I don't know if you saw in the video, it touches right there. So I got to figure out a way to move this entire thing, maybe, I don't know, 4 inches back. Get this to be right about here. So it'll put this guy all the way up against the back of the filter box, maybe just a little bit of space there. So let's see if we can get that guy moved. So I can do this one of 2 ways. I can mount it in the same vertical-ish direction and bring it back to about here where those screw holes line up about to the end of that strap. Still have tons of space here to the air box. No chance of that rubbing. Or I could mount it this direction, or I guess it would be this direction, and go about it that way, but then all the fins are at the bottom, not as much airflow. What should we do here? And that way it can still be lined up with pretty much the end of that right there. Well, let me tell you what I'm gonna do. If this was gonna be permanent, what I would do is mount it this direction, bring it all the way back there, and call it a day. And in order to do that, you would basically chop off the last piece of this fin, this last section. That way it'll stop right here, and then zip tie back on the same way, or tack weld it, or put bolts through it, whatever you want to do. And it would sit right about there. That's the more permanent-ish thing to do. Or use a shorter heat sink that will be, again, about this long and just not have as much heat sink. I'm gonna put, so this one's about 15 3/4 inch, so that would be what, about 12 inches long. So a 12-inch long heat sink with the same width, I think it's 4 inches, that would work for you too. Actually, yeah, that would work. So I take it back. If I was to make this permanent, I would just order the shorter heat sink. It's about 12 inches long. That way it's not hanging out this far past, and it's still plenty long with a ton of surface area. So I'll put the link to this big long 15 3/4 inch one in the description, and then the equivalent 12-inch long one as well. That way you've got both if you want to go this route. But I'm not keeping this permanently. Maybe I'll keep it as a spare or something like that. Something to laugh at on the shelf. What I'm gonna do is temporarily, for now, while I'm waiting on the ModMafia one, zip tie it this direction and call it a day. Still gonna get tons of cooling, way more than I was before, and it'll be nice and firm, and I'll have my temporary battery bracket in place, and should be fine till the ModMafia unit comes in, and then we'll swap it out. All right, here we go. Doesn't look as great, but we'll get it on and it'll work for now. I'm gonna get that bolted in. All right, that's in place. Got the cable routed this direction. Come in here, just make sure it's out of the way of anything so it won't snag on anything. And we should be good to go. I'm gonna close the hood one more time, make sure it doesn't run into anything, but I think we should be good at this point. Hood is shut, everything cleared. Let's see if she starts. Started right up. Good deal. I'm gonna let it idle for a little while, make sure it doesn't die. The same process for the PMD heatsink can be used for really any vehicle or equipment that uses the 6.5 liter turbo diesel. On to the next project. Thanks for watching and continuing to support the channel. Leave any comments and the questions in the comments down below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button somewhere around there. Maybe it's here, I don't know. And if you want to be notified as new videos are being uploaded, hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button and you'll get a notification whenever a new video gets uploaded. In the meantime, I love you guys as always, and God bless. See you next time. He's running again. Can't wait to get that Raptor pump on and that Feed the Beast fuel hose upgrade. That way I will be 100% certain that the fuel system is flowing really well, way better than it was from the factory, and that no matter what sort of speed I'm going on the highway, whether it's 70, 75 or slower, I'm always going to have enough fuel delivery to the injection pump, and it's never going to be a concern again. Watch the next couple videos to see how that goes with the Raptor 100 pump installation. Hopefully it's not too bad. I was looking under the truck and it's really tight under there. As big as this thing is, there's not a whole lot of room to mount accessories underneath it on the frame rail. So we'll figure out where to mount it. You know, maybe it's all in my head, but the turbo spooling sound, I could never really hear it, even at slower speeds. I always figured there's tons of, air filtration and things like that in the way of the intake, so you don't really hear it much. But this is the first time I'm noticing the turbo spooling sound coming from a stopper at slower speeds. I wonder if that has anything to do with the new PMD or if it's all in my head. That was our neighbor waving at me in her giant truck. I'm not too educated on the PMD and what all it actually does for the fuel system. I wonder if any of you guys in the comments can tell me if that's just my ears playing tricks on me, or if the PMD being on its way out is actually that much of a difference until it dies or not. I don't know. So far so good though. It's warmed up to operating temperature and driving around. Everything seems normal. Cross your fingers. I got mine crossed. Wish me luck. Still doing well. Temperature is sitting right at about 180. Since I've got the 180 degree thermostats in there. No hiccups, no hesitation. Is there any wood in here I can knock on? No. I'll knock on my head. Now that we've been driving for a while and everything's nice and warm, got back to the house, been parked for a few minutes, and I'm going to try to do a warm start. Some folks on one of the forums were saying if the injection pump was starting to have issues, then a warm start may be problematic after it's been sitting for a few minutes. So let's give that a try. So it started right back up. Seems okay. I'm gonna let it sit for 10 minutes, come back and give it another start.